One of the best changes we made to our homeschool this last year was to start using BookShark for our history instruction. I haven't talked much about it because I wanted to see what it really felt like before forming my opinion, but now that we are at the very end of year C, I gotta say I am a fan. BookShark offers a multitude of secular homeschool resources like history, science, and language arts. You might be familiar with their sister company, Sunlight. Both of these companies have a reputation for excellence, a gentle literature approach to learning, and amazing book selections that parents and students alike can enjoy. We started out this year with Level C History, and I have it here in this binder. And as you can see, Level C History is World History Year 2 of 2. Now, we did not do year 1 of 2 because we were using Pandia Press's History Quest. We absolutely loved that curriculum. It just wasn't the best fit for us for this school year. As you can see on their guide, this Level C covers approximately ages 7 through 9. However, my daughter that I was using this with was 9 turning 10. For us, that was a perfect fit. With this being history and not a core academic subject like math or language arts, the grade ranges and age ranges aren't as prescriptive, we'll say, right? So for my family, my daughter, me included, we are very sensitive to violence and stories of suffering and things like that. So I purposely delayed her history introduction for when she was an age where she could handle it a little better. And I honestly, going forward with my other kids, I'm gonna do the exact same thing because I think it was perfect timing. Being in that 9-10 year range, she is in this perfect spot to start to really wonder why and like the stories of people of the past and have it be a little more realistic. Unlike when she was a little bit younger, it was nice to get these world cultures or these ancient civilizations because it reads more like a children's story instead of actual historical context. So for all intents and purposes, this curriculum spans roughly all the way from the fall of Rome through medieval history, knights and castles, Marco Polo, exploration, finding of the Americas, Michelangelo, and the Elizabethan era, all the way through the Industrial Revolution. So it's a huge period of time that it covers, but this is very common for cycle year 2 in the history cycles that are really common in lots of different philosophies of home education. Year 1 is ancient, year 2 is middle, and then so on and so forth. This would be that middle history. Okay, before I get into the actual curriculum, I wanted to make a quick note that on Sunlight and BookShark, they heavily recommend using their binder and their divider systems. You don't really actually have to do that. Their binders are massive and they don't fit on my bookshelf, so I was never a huge fan of that. Instead, I took all the instructor manuals and student pages and put them all in the order that I wanted them to be in, and I found a regular 3-ring binder. They come pre-hole punched, which is really great. Throw it in the binder. I bought some dividers off of Amazon and it fits perfectly into a standard size binder that does fit on my shelf. And as you can see, I have these tabs here and I wrote the numbers on them to keep track of what week I am on. All right, so let's get into it. First off, I wanted to talk about the books that we used with this year's history. There was a great selection of books to be had. I added some, took some out, but by the end of it all, I really liked the combination that we came up with. The main books that you will be using, and if you are thinking of purchasing this curriculum for yourself, these are the books that you're going to definitely want to have on hand and own, not just check out from your library, because you will be using them the entire duration of this course. They are the Usborne Book of World History. This one walks through a chronological span of this Middle Ages, has amazing illustrations and easy to digest text for you and your student to read together. Nothing is too inappropriate, too intense. There is one page that I needed to redact, and I will write that in the comment section what page and everything that is if you are interested in that. But that was literally the only thing that I had to change from this book. It was a great resource, and I'm really glad that we have it in our home library now. The second main spine that you'll be using is another Usborne book, and this is the Time Traveler book. This one you will kind of hop around back and forth because it's not fully in the same chronology as the curriculum is, but it's not that hard to follow. It wasn't my absolute favorite, but I am glad that we had it. It's taking the position that this little boy here is time traveling through these magical goggles. Honestly, I could have stood to have that part taken away. I would have just liked it to read like a story, because in some parts you were expected to keep up with this character and the people that he meets, assuming that they are part of this fictional story, when really that part wasn't super necessary. But that was my only critique about this book. Otherwise, it's a really good resource too. A very crucial component to all of the BookShark history courses is their timeline book. Now, they have a pre-designed timeline book that you can purchase from them. I will say, after using it, it is very high quality. There's lots of other resources out there where you can make your own timeline, you can have a visual one on the wall, you can have a book, you can make your own. Some people call it a book of centuries, some people call it a timeline book. It's all the same thing, as long as you can see this full chronology of history and you are adding notes to it as you go from the time you start history all the way through the end of your homeschool experience. You will be able to see the intersection of all these things happening, right? That's something that we missed from our public school days, was we learned history in these isolated vacuum type of learning environments. We were never encouraged to make these connections and see that, oh, what was happening in France was also happening over here in the Maldives, or I don't know. So this timeline book really allows you to see how just because something is happening in America doesn't mean the rest of the world pushed pause. So it's a way to really gain this full, broad worldview instead of just this America-centric view that a lot of traditional curriculums will sometimes fall into. So this is their timeline book. Like I said, it's very high quality. The first half of the pages are yellow because those are the before Common Era years, and all the white ones are after Common Era. The really cool thing about these timelines is that every year's cycle of history, you are able to purchase stickers that match what you're covering in that year of history. So whether you choose to use the whole BookShark curriculum or not, you can get value out of this timeline and the stickers that they offer. We are very close to the end of our school year, so I don't have a full page to show you. This is a portion of a sticker page. The back of it has perforated lines so that you can peel off the backing of it. It is paper on the front so that your student can color if they desire. You just cut out the image that you need and you find where to place it on the timeline and you stick it right in. There are a couple of times in the curriculum where it prompts you to write in a timeline entry because there is not a sticker that accompanies it. These are really great, high quality illustrations of important figures and events and places in history that are a beautiful addition to whatever timeline you do choose to use. I'll show you an example page. This was a rather busy decade, if you will. It's more than a decade, but you put the stickers top, bottom, draw arrows, write the labels as you wish. My daughter did not want to color anything, and that's fine, but we will have this and we will add to it as we continue our journey through history. Okay, so those are your required resources. I did add one additional resource that we used many, many times, and that is the Usborne Encyclopedia of World History. I purchased this last year when we started our journey through full breadth of history, and I really, really enjoy this one. It has amazing pictures. It is chronological for the most part until you get some crossover, and then they kind of have to move things around. But it's a really great resource to have, and I would honestly recommend that every homeschool family has this on hand for whatever history curriculum you choose to use. Okay, so BookShark history is not, if you follow the curriculum as it is written, it is not just a history curriculum, okay? So you have, BookShark is, loosely Charlotte Mason philosophy, where you have multiple subjects that kind of all cross in together to create this beautiful experience. Some of that being poetry and read-alouds and geography and fables, things like that. We did this part for part of the year and then we skipped it for part of the year. So the resources that it suggested to use, since I'm showing resources, is this geography songs book, and it has the lyrics to the songs that you will learn, and it comes with a CD and a big giant map. I would skip this one. It's really cheesy. We listened to the first few songs and then I couldn't take it anymore. Maybe it's effective at memorizing, but it's not good music. So I just couldn't handle it. But you make your own decision. I'm assuming that it would be good for memorizing if that's your if that's your goal with using this. The other two resources are the poetry and the fables. In this year C of BookShark, they have you using 104 poems of whimsy and wisdom for poetry, and Aesop's Fables for Children, illustrated by Milo Winter for the fables. We got through a good portion of this, but as the year went on, they became less important items and we needed to use our time in the day to prioritize some other subjects instead. All right, so back to the curriculum. For BookShark History C, you have a 36-week, 4 days within those 36 weeks of history instruction. Every day is very small chunks of learning so that it can easily get incorporated into whatever other subjects you have going on. They're not going to throw at you these huge assignments one day and then very small assignments on another day. Every day is very evenly paced so that it's very manageable if you're taking these single day bites out of the curriculum. Towards the end of the year, we were kind of scrambling to get things finished. And honestly, because my daughter is at the older end of the recommended age range for this history cycle, I was able to do 1 full week of history instruction in 1 or 2 days. So if you need to speed it up, you absolutely can. It's just sitting there and listening and looking at the pages for a little bit longer. All right, so in the instructor's guide, you have quite a few pages of things that you can read that are for the parent. They tell you what the curriculum is going to cover. You have a list of all of your books that you can get from the library or purchase. They have field trip ideas. They have planning pages, is my child where they need to be at this time kind of checklist. There's a big master page of all of the timeline figures if you happen to miss one or lose place of one. Lots of really good information in these resource pages. The rest of the curriculum, which I'll try to show this here, is divided into these 36 weeks. And every week is going to have a similar type of layout. So I will pick something in the middle, let's say week 18. So you'll go through and they have the resource listed down on this part of the table. And then day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is listed, even though there's nothing ever scheduled on day 5. And they tell you exactly what you're going to do from those pages. So for instance, from the Usborne Book of World History, we're reading page 114 to 15, 116 to 17, 118 to 19, and nothing on day 4. So that's our assignment from that book. We are starting a new picture book, Kublai Khan, Emperor of Everything, on day 4. The geography songs, they tell you which ones to listen to. The read-aloud books, they tell you what chapters to read. Aesop's Fables and poetry is listed there as well. There are also blank spots at the bottom if you would like to use this planning page with another curriculum and incorporate your schedule onto this page. Also, if you have something else that you need to schedule on day 5, or if you want to catch up, you can write that in those blanks right there too. On this page as well, you'll see some little figures, and they explain this in the teacher's guide, but if there is a globe, for instance, you have some map work that you will do that day. If there's a little 2-headed silhouette, that is a timeline figure that you will place into your book. If there's a note for parents, they will have that down here at the bottom. After those single view, week at a glance type pages, it does go into some more in-depth information. Every day is broken down into what you actually need to do. It's bolded for what day you are actually on, and then it lists out every activity for that day. So if you do not enjoy looking at just a table, you can look at some more detailed information. There's some notes for parents or some questions to ask your kids as well found in this section. You just simply follow along. Here's day 1, day 2, that continues on the next page, then day 3, and when you flip it over, you find day 4. Easy as that. All right, so like I mentioned, this is a literature-based curriculum. A lot of what you are learning is going to be taken from the books that you are reading. Those spine books that I showed you do show a lot of the core information that you will need, but there are plenty of picture books and chapter books that help to make the story really come alive and help your child to see more in depth these characters like Queen Elizabeth and Peter the Great. There are also chapter books that really give you a sense of place for the eras that might be a little bit hard to imagine when you're just looking at them in the Usborne books. Now, you can find on their website a list of all of the books that are included for every level. When you buy the curriculum, you also have a page that shows all of the core titles that you will need and the read aloud titles that you might want to find. I found a lot of mine at the library, so I don't have a lot of them to show, but if I don't have the book on hand, I will pop up an image of that book instead. All right, so these first books are in the History Geography category. We have Leif the Lucky, Castle Diary, the Journal of Tobias Burgess, Kublai Khan, Emperor of Everything, Michelangelo, You Wouldn't Want to Be Sick in the 16th Century, Peter the Great, as well as Good Queen Bess. Now for the read-alouds, we checked out either physical copies from our library, or actually we found a lot of digital versions of these books that we read on our little e-reader, but I did have a few that I needed to buy hard copies of because they were harder to come by. Okay, so these read-alouds include Red Sails to Capri, Sticks Across the Chimney. This one was my favorite one. It's really good. Tales of Robin Hood, Adventures of Sir Lancelot the Great, The Minstrel in the Tower, The Door in the Wall, The School Story, The Cricket in Times Square, Captain Nobody, The Apprentice, The Penderwicks, The 21 Balloons, White Stallion of Lapisa, Encyclopedia Brown Cracks the Case, Word of Mouse, The Little Riders. Now, did we read every single one of those? Nope, we sure did not. So again, with my daughter being a 9 turning 10-year-old, and she has a very high reading level at that, the majority of these read aloud books were actually independent reads for her. 1, because she could do it, but also 2, because my voice got really tired. And as much as I love reading aloud, I just can't handle it after a certain amount of time. All right, so full transparency, we started Sir Lancelot the Great. We did not finish. I think it would have been good. It was really funny, but I think maybe we got sick or something towards the end and we had to just skip it. The Door in the Wall was a little hard to get through. I think we finished it. I think maybe I read the first part and then she independently finished the rest of it. It was okay. I was hoping it was going to be better than it was, but it was still a good look at that time in history. Like I mentioned, Sticks Across the Chimney was my favorite. It was a really cute story. I omitted Captain Nobody just because of content, and they do give a content warning in the guide, so please make sure that you read your guide ahead of the week that you are on. The Penderwicks is my daughter's all-time favorite book series. She has read all 5 of those books. I don't even know how many times, at least 4 times now. So I didn't feel like I needed to assign it for a history reading when she's already devoured them multiple times. The 21 Balloons, we started and then we quickly dropped off. It was just hard to get through. I think there was a lot of repetitive phrases and it just gets exhausting to read aloud after a while. So maybe get that one on audiobook. White Stallion of Lapisa, we skipped. That was when we were trying to condense a lot of the weeks into day chunks instead of week-long assignments, and so we just ended up skipping that one. We also skipped Encyclopedia Brown and Word of Mouse. So maybe we skipped more than I thought, but the ones that we did read, we really did enjoy. And all of the history and geography read-alouds, we did actually read those, and they were all fantastic. All right, so another thing that you have the option of purchasing with this BookShark History Level C is their hands-on history kit. Now they have these for a few different levels. I obviously only have this one to show right now, but I will say that it was a fun addition to our history. It's not a requirement, but if you have a crafty kid or someone who really retains the information by doing something physically hands-on with it when you're done auditorily and visually learning about it, this is really a nice addition to your history time. So when you purchase it, it comes in a box. It has everything that you need to create all of the crafts that are included. Along with the box comes a guide that is giving you a little bit of historical information about the item that you are making, as well as the instructions for the craft and any templates that you might need. All of the crafts are in individual bags so that they're easy to keep track of. This one, for example, we haven't gotten to yet, is to make a letterpress, and it has everything included that you need. Or like this model airplane when we get to the Wright brothers. We have not done all of these, but we have done quite a few of them. Some that my daughter really enjoyed was making the Viking treasure chest with the jewels inside. The jewels do come with the kit. A signet ring made out of clay. I believe this was from Viking as well. I don't actually remember what's in here. I think they're little coins. I think they're runes. I think it's Viking runes. But you make this little pouch satchel, and you have these letters and these little wooden chips that have the letters on them. symbols. And most recently, she made a samurai hat. Now, we also happen to be doing some of the BookShark language art lessons at the same time earlier in this year. I will talk about that more in depth another time, but I did want to mention that some of the books that we read with the language arts really had a great crossover to some history concepts. And the books that I pulled that we really enjoyed that had this historical crossover that they were assigned in the language arts course are this Junior World Explorers Marco Polo book. This really helped when we were talking about the Age of Exploration and Kublai Khan and things like that. We made a lot of good connections from reading this one. I kind of wish this one had been included in the history curriculum, actually. Viking Adventure, again, that really helped to solidify the experience of the Viking times. I kind of wish this one was included as well. Then we also have things that are not necessarily in the same historical era, but they gave a really good historical picture of what life would have been like. Even though it wasn't in the eras that we were studying, it really had this great connection, and I have a feeling that these would be good ones for levels D and E whenever we get to those. So I am glad that we have them, and I'll go ahead and show you what those are. We have Lumber Cave Library, A Doctor Like Papa, Cora Frere, and The House on Willinska Street. Well, hello, editing Brianna here. I realized that I forgot a few things, so I thought I would hop on and clarify really quick before the video ends. Is another highly suggested item that comes with the course, and that is a laminated map, and you have different versions of the whole world, of Europe, of America, and you can also purchase vis-a-vis markers through their website or just on your own, and you can mark those maps as you're learning these geography items. And one big thing that I really wanted to clarify was that the Read-Alouds and the readers are different things. So the Read-Alouds and the readers may or may not relate to the historical time period that you are in. More than likely the Read-Alouds will, but not all of them do. And I found myself skipping the titles that didn't exactly match with where we were in that time period because we didn't really have time for it. We wanted to dig in with some other areas instead. On the readers, those are meant to be independent for your child, and on the BookShark website you can find different levels of these readers depending on the reading level of your child, right? So for this History C, you have access to levels 2, 3, and 4. Now, side note, their language arts curriculum uses the same readers. These two, the language arts and the history, do not have to be done together. But if you choose to do them together, they wanted these readers to be the same so that it basically cuts your workload in half, or at least your child's workload. So they will be reading these same readers. Because you have the option to combine these courses or not, some of the readers have historical meaning and some of them do not. So for instance, this last year, I had my daughter doing levels 3 and 4 in the language arts course because we were trying to fill in some gaps, so we pick and choose some lessons here and there. So I chose the readers that I thought would be most helpful for her. Because you have the ability to use the language arts with the history, like I said, some of those really do very well align with the history curriculum, like the Marco Polo book and the Viking Adventure book that I mentioned that I wished were part of the history curriculum. They are not in the history itself curriculum, but they are part of the readers if you choose to use that level of readers. You don't actually have to use the readers if you don't want to, but they do have really great title selections, so I would encourage you to just do your research and make that decision for yourself. And very lastly, I wanted to mention that BookShark is a all-in-one boxed curriculum. You can choose to buy history, science, language arts. I think they even have some math options. You can choose to buy the entire package curriculum if you want, but you do not have to. And that's the big difference that I found, because a lot of these box curriculum things, you are kind of trapped in buying the whole thing or nothing at all. What I personally do, because I do not have an endless budget for homeschool materials, is that I go through very painstakingly, but I go through and I write a list of all of the titles that are suggested for whatever category I'm interested in, whether that's history or science or what have you. And I look at my library catalog and I write down the ones that are accessible at my library and like the digital versions of our library, like Libby and Overdrive. If they are not available there, then I look at BookShark's price versus Amazon's price. You can also look at places like Thrift Books. I just prefer not to deal with the shipping that's involved with that. So I personally make a table of Amazon prices and BookShark prices, and I figure out which one is the cheapest. There's quite a few titles where BookShark does have the cheaper price for that title. Now, if you don't want to go through all of that work, then by all means, buy it all through them. You do get a discount if you buy the entire package at once, but it's just never been enough of an offset for that to be worth it for me. So I pick and choose my titles. Also, there's some that I kind of know ahead of time that we're not really going to be into the book, or it doesn't sound like one we would like, or maybe it has a content issue that I don't appreciate. So I don't feel a need to buy that one if I know we're not going to read it in the first place. All right, so that is BookShark history. I hope that answers any questions you might have. I know for me personally, when I was researching curriculum, if you are a fellow secular homeschooler, you know the trouble that comes with finding really good quality secular curriculum that you don't have to heavily adapt, that isn't dry textbook version like you would find in a public school, but finding that really sweet spot where it is this wholesome homeschool experience without having religious context. And I really think that I have found a great one. I loved our time with Pandia Press and the History Quest book. They're just very different curriculums. One is this continuous story that you are following, and the other is a little more sporadic, but you dive in deeper into the topics. So it's really a personal choice. But I know that when I was researching, there is not a ton of videos out there on the BookShark curriculum. If anything, there's a lot of unboxing videos or people using some higher levels, but I really haven't seen a lot on these lower levels, and I don't want you to discount it. This curriculum has been amazing for us, and I have full intentions on using the level D for next year, and we will just continue our way through the cycle of history. So thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will do my best to answer those for you.